Coming up on Varsity Sports, get the latest high school hoops headlines.
Plus, one of the top talents in North Dakota history is putting together a stellar high school career. We'll go one-on-one with future Bison baller Sarah Jacobson.
Temperatures are rising across the Dakotas. We'll find out who's heating up in basketball in the basketball forecast.
And as always, we'll preview some of the best matchups in the coming week, all coming up right now on Varsity Sports.
Hello, how's everybody doing? Jay Elson is on assignment on his way to North Dakota. I'm Tom Neiman along with Jason and Dara, and another great week in high school hoops across the Dakotas. Jason, and before we get to the headlines, some sad news, some bad news across the Dakotas. Two coaching legends, and that's not putting it lightly, in North and South Dakota have passed on.
That's an understatement. We're talking about maybe the two icons of coaching in North and South Dakota passing away within about 24-hour period. Of course, Eddie Byer retired in 1997 with 688 victories in North Dakota high school basketball. That Hillsboro coaching legend, he passed away at the age of 77. And although Dan Carr of Linton HMB recently moved ahead of Byer on the all-time victories list, Byer actually is still the North Dakota record holder because Carr collected a few of those in Minnesota. So just as a note, Eddie's son-in-law, Dave Nelson, also went into coaching. And then, of course, his grandson, Craig Nelson, also coaching here in Sioux Falls with Washington. Quite a legacy that he left. One thing about Eddie Byer you always hear is he loved to slow the game down. And I think that was one of his marks. People didn't like him for that, but he won games, and he won a lot of games. And, he had his own style, that's for sure.
All right, an incredible career there, and one in South Dakota. Gary Munson of Mitchell, legendary coach there, died of a heart attack on Monday night in Mitchell. He was 72 years old, had only been out of coaching for about 4 years, but won more state titles in South Dakota than anyone. 9 boys varsity state championships, 3 in the girls when he was coaching boys and girls at the same time. He is number 2 in boys coaching wins with 672. Combined, he's got more than 900 wins between the boys and the girls. And I'm just going to miss seeing Munson around.
I mean, you know Gary. We all know Gary. The guy loved basketball more than anybody that I know. You talk to him for 2 minutes and you realize that. This is a guy who, on his day off, will take a 400-mile trip across the state to do some scouting. Nobody scouted better than Gary, and I think that's what really gave him an advantage when scouting wasn't universal. He had seen everybody play across the state.
I played against his teams in Mitchell. I was here as a player in 84, 85, 86. They won 3 straight championships, won 40 in a row. We had him in overtime in one game, but he was the guy after we'd grow up a little bit and get older, and you'd see him at the state tournament and say, your team's down a little bit this year, aren't they, Munson? He'd just give you that, swear at you a little bit and say, we'll see you at the state tournament, and then you go win the state tournament. So
he's the kind of guy, everybody's got a story about Gary. Every time he was into a gym, he attracted a crowd, and he will be severely missed here on the South Dakota basketball landscape.
Yes, going to miss seeing Munson around. All right, let's get to the headlines, Jason, and some milestones this week. There are a couple of players, girls players in North Dakota that are putting up incredible numbers of points in their career.
Yeah, in honor of those coaching legends, we'll keep talking about some of the basketball, and those milestones keep getting bigger and bigger. First of all, Mackenzie Menengah of Elk Point Jefferson, she went over the 1,000-point mark against West Central last season. That's a fine accomplishment, but Sarah Jacobson doubled her up, 2,000 points for her career last Friday against Wahpeton, and she's now also the all-time leading scorer at Shanley, and just a few more points, and she's going to threaten that all-time Class A record. Now, let's comprehend this a little bit. Riley Nudell out of Maple Valley, she put up 3,000 points for her career, only the second to do it in North Dakota. Trails Tanya Fisher, the only
There's somebody else that scored 3,000.
She trails 31-48, and she also set the all-time rebounding mark. Just an incredible career for Riley Nudell. She's been playing since she was a 7th grader.
Yeah, you pencil that out. That is an amazing career. 3,000 points over probably, 6 years of varsity play.
It's crazy.
That is amazing. All right, we've got another buzzer beater this week. Last Thursday night, Tanner Frick of Yankton nailed a 3-pointer to get a double overtime win for the Bucks over Brookings, 51-50. Frick is the same guy who had a game-winning layup last year against Pierre. And in football, he broke up the potential game-winning pass in the most recent 11AA football game. Frick is clutch, and he gets another one to get Yankton another
He's
win.
really helped that Yankton team this year. And then we had another buzzer beater last night in Harrisburg. We're coming down to the final seconds of the game, and Alex Fegan of Roosevelt hits this air quote 3-pointer. You can see his feet maybe a little in front of the line, but it counts as 3 points, ties the game up. Roosevelt eventually gets the win, 55-49. yeah, you got to give the refs a break once in a while.
All right. Good run for Harrisburg right now.
Yeah.
They're looking pretty good. And you've got a football note before we get out of headlines.
Yeah, quick diversion into football. Sioux Falls Washington star Matt Farniak, he got to play in the U.S. Army All-American Bowl in San Antonio last Saturday, and he's normally a left tackle, got to play right guard the entire game against maybe 90 of the best players in the nation. This is the premier high school all-star event, and he's not yet made a decision on where he's going to play, but he's narrowed his choices down. He says Nebraska, Michigan State, Iowa, the three main contenders at this point. And a side note, he played an incredible game. I think against some of the best defensive linemen, he held his own and more in that game.
And we think he's going to make a decision here by February 3rd, and we've got a signing show coming up on February 3rd.
Yeah, we extended our signing day special to 1 full hour, and we'll definitely be talking to Matt Farniak and talking about his decision. He's got an official visit coming up this week and one up next week, and he tells me after that he'll probably be ready to make that decision before February 3rd.
All right. When we come back on Varsity Sports, Sarah Jacobson has her team on quite a winning streak. She is in range to set the all-time Class A points record in North Dakota. Find out why she thinks she's still got a lot to work on when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
Well, it's hard not to notice Sarah Jacobson on the court. The only thing that stands out more than her red hair is that sweet shot and her overall command of the game. She'll go down as one of the best players in North Dakota high school history, but she's not done creating her legacy yet.
This evening, that's 3 points for Sarah Jacobson. Sarah Jacobson has eclipsed the 2,000-point mark in her career.
It's hard to believe that this player who's scored over 2,000 points in her career and is currently on a 51-game winning streak had a time in her life when she had trouble winning. But when you're the youngest in a basketball family, it can be rough sometimes. Sarah talks about some of those games growing up playing against her brother AJ, who also scored over 2,000 career points in high school and currently stars for the Bison.
Like, he could just play defense on me and pick my pocket, or I'd go up for a layup and he'd just come in block the crap out of me.
Well, she didn't have much more luck against her Bison Hall of Fame mom, Pat, who also scored over 2,000 points in her high school career.
Nope, she would always get me at the end. When I was younger, she gave me a game. She still had it.
Between struggling against the family and always playing up a grade or two, Sarah has constantly challenged herself on the court, and she constantly is working on the little things to get better.
My parents and even my brother have always told me that there's always something that I can improve on, so I just look for little things in my game to try to improve and be the best that I can.
Well, the great thing about her is she has a constant list, I believe, on things that are always trying to make her better. People don't understand the time that she spent in the gym to make herself the way she is right now. But it's the mental end of it where she cares about her teammates, she pushes her teammates, she wants them to have success, she tries to make sure they have that success, and it all kind of feeds off itself, and that's when you start really seeing the type of champion she really is.
Sarah has spent most of her life in the spotlight, so no surprise that there were plenty of colleges looking for her services. But it may be surprising that NDSU wasn't at the top of Sarah's list.
When I first started looking at colleges, honestly, NDSU wasn't even in the picture for me. I had it in my mind that I wanted to go someplace else, away from where my family went, away from Fargo.
But when it came time to finally make a decision, Sarah saw the value in staying home.
With my final decision, it was between Illinois State and NDSU, and my brother talked to me, and I was still a little leery about going to the same college as my brother, and he said that he thought it would be really cool for him and I to both play at NDSU at the same time, being brother and sister. He'd be able to watch me, I'd be able to watch him. And so at the end, along with my mom, her influence on me, and my brother saying that, I felt that NDSU was the right choice for me.
Now that she's settled on her future, she's focused on the present, which means winning another title for Shanley.
Nice work, Jason. And let's take a look at some of Sarah Jacobson's numbers on her season so far. Just over 20 points a game, 9 assists per game, almost 5 steals a game. Gets to the free throw line, a lot of great scores. That's where they get a lot of points. She obviously does that, shooting over 80%. What else makes her so good?
Well, I think let's touch on that. Her percentages, 83% from the free throw line, 57% from the three-point line. And the reason that number is so high is she's very selective on taking her shots. She makes sure she's open. She's definitely not a ball hog. You can see that by her 9.1 assists per game. She elevates the play on the rest of her team. I know Coach Tim Jacobson spoke a little bit about that in the piece, but that can't be emphasized enough. She makes her surrounding players that much better. And this Shanley team, I mean, they've been good for a couple years, but this team might be the best of the bunch. They've got a lot of talent on this team, and she really, really helps people flourish.
Jacobson will stay home, go to college at North Dakota State. Here is what the women's head coach at NDSU, Maren Walseth, has to say about her hometown recruit.
Then we had Sarah Jacobson commit. Obviously, that's a fantastic commitment, having another Jacobson join the Bison family. Sarah is a winner through and through. She has won state championships in each of her 3 high school sports that she plays. But certainly basketball is her love and her passion, and it will be exciting to have a Jacobson on our side, not just on the men's side.
Sarah Jacobson can score with the best of them. There are a lot of players burning up the nets in the Dakotas right now. We'll see who's hot next in Jason's basketball forecast.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
Welcome back to Varsity Sports. Time for my favorite part of the show where Jason goes over there and does his weather thing in the basketball forecast. Let's do it.
Love the basketball forecast, and it's time to find out who's been really lighting it up across the Dakotas. Some of the temperatures are getting pretty high. You see Deshaun Eikens, 47 points. That's over his last 2 games. I mean, the guy averages over 20 points almost all the time, so not a huge accomplishment for him, but hey, still big numbers. You see right here, Jason Feather, Tronis McKay, Colton 3-irons, each of them a huge part of winning the Ramsey County Invitational over the weekend. 3 games in 3 days. You see their totals over those 3 days, 60, 53, and 61. To have 3 guys that can contribute like that is huge. Lexi Robson, also a huge day, 29 points, 6 steals, and what maybe was their toughest game of the year coming in. They had no trouble with West Fargo, though, taking them down. And then you see Riley Nudell. Yeah, that's not an error, folks. She averages 36.9 points per game so far this season, taking her game to another level. Let's take a look now at the South Dakota temperatures. And Ty Hoagland, nobody is hotter than this guy in Class A right now. He went for 20 points, 30 points, and then 32 points in his last 3 games. That 32 coming against what some believe might be the best team in the state, Sioux Falls Christian, in their win on Tuesday night, kind of showing that he can get it done. And Tristan Techmeyer, he's averaging 25.6 over his last 3 games, totally dominated against Minnetonka and Sioux City West, and another 17 against Harrisburg. Anna Breck, 31.3 points over her last 3 games. She has been on fire, and her teammate Izzy Van Veldhuizen, by the way, also averaging about 22 points per game in that span, so a terrific trio. And then you see the freshman, Noah Friedell. He's worth a mention. 36 points in their game over Madison. I mean, that's a really good team that they beat in overtime. And this guy's just a freshman. He also has a brother who's a junior on the team who's doing very well as well. But Friedell, his 36 against Madison was huge. All right, time to take a look at some of the best games over the next few days in the season. And right here, you always get great games between Century and Bismarck. They're coming up on Thursday. But you see the percentages. Maybe not as close a games as we've seen over the last few seasons. Another big game coming up on Saturday. We've got Huron and Watertown. They've already played once this year, and Huron actually favored 51% by the computer models to get a win, even though they lost the first time around, and they're on the road. That says something about that big win on Tuesday night against Pierre. I think Huron is for real. Let's move to North Dakota, where the girls, Red River, is taking on Fargo Davies. 2 contenders in the EDC. I think this game will go a long way to finding out which team is for real. And then you see the rest of it. We've got a Class A versus a Class B game. Warner taking on T. Actually, the Class B team favored in this one. Warner, they're playing a little closer to home at the Redfield Classic. And then the Hanson Classic, the nightcap. You got McCook Central taking on Mount Vernon Plankinton. I think Mount Vernon Plankinton just a little bit better, and then Shanley taking on Davies in the EDC, another terrific battle there, a midseason kind of litmus test to see which teams are real contenders in the EDC. So a lot closer, as you can see, in the percentages this week. Last week, the computer models were dead on, by the way.
And Huron is for real, huh?
And Huron is for real. This is a team, Coach Budenhagen, I mean, every year has this team as a contender, and then every few years, they're an elite type of team. And I think Highland Heinz and company have really made that an elite team in South Dakota this year.
All right, thanks, Jace. Up next, some of the other great performances, including an incredible game from a young man in Dickinson, North Dakota. That's coming up in the Players of the Week.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
Welcome back. Varsity Sports has combined this year with the online publication Prep Hoops Dakotas to bring you the Players of the Week in boys basketball every week. Let's get to it, Jason, with North Dakota first. And Mr. Moody at Dickinson, 47 points against Williston, but not enough to win the award this week.
Yeah, that's a huge game by Mr. Moody. But Josh Kyle is the winner. He got the most votes on PrepHoopsDakota.com. And by the way, you can go vote for this award every week. But Kyle, just a sophomore out of Burke County, he had a big week. 18 points, 21 boards in one game, 18 points, 13 boards in the next game.
In South Dakota, Jason, Noah Friedell at T area, just a freshman, had 36 against Madison, but again, not enough to get it.
Yeah, because Tristan Techmeyer dominated, and he put up a 32 and a 28 last week. And of course, last night, just put up another 17. This guy has been on fire.
All right, the fast break starts with this. Jandy Hansen Classic coming up at the Corn Palace in Mitchell on the 23rd. There's some good girls games there. What do you think about these?
Well, I think some of the best games of the day will be going on throughout the. I mean, all these games are terrific matchups. That's the advantage of having teams in a pool and being able to match them up later. One of the ones I'm really looking forward to is Elk Point Jefferson versus Sioux Valley. Elk Point Jefferson, a couple losses so far, but played St. Thomas more about as tough as anybody's played them this season. So I think they'll give Sioux Valley a very good matchup. Some real stars with Mackenzie Menengah and Carly Peterson. So watch that one. And then the nightcap. You've got two of the best players, two of the best post players, and Morgan Kepsel going against Megan Boltzma. That's going to be a terrific battle between McCook Central and quite in, but McCook Central and Mount Vernon Plankinton.
All right, we're a month into the season now. Are there any teams that have made you stand up and say, I didn't know they were going to be that good?
Yeah.
Who's been a surprise to you?
There always is. By the middle of January, I kind of crumple up those preseason rankings, throw them away. One team is Huron. This is a team that's gotten some real quality wins, and I didn't believe in them at first. The first couple of wins they had like that, beating Aberdeen and some teams. But when they took out Pierre on Tuesday night on their home gym, I thought they were for real. Another team, Sioux Falls O'Gorman, the girls. This is a team that's undefeated so far this year. I thought they lost a lot of senior pieces off of last year's team, but this is a team that's really put things together this year. Got a great front line, and their guards have been doing a lot better than I thought.
In boys basketball in South Dakota, in Sioux Falls, who is the best boys team? We saw Washington and O'Gorman. O'Gorman beat Washington here on Tuesday night. You got Techmeyer at Sioux Falls Roosevelt. Who's the best boys team in Sioux Falls?
We'll probably throw you for a little curveball here, but who's undefeated against other Sioux Falls opponents? It's Sioux Falls Christian right now. This is a team that beat Washington and beat O'Gorman. They did lose to Del Rapids, so are they the best? If they played a tournament right now, I still think O'Gorman would be the winners. They played an outstanding game on Tuesday night against Washington, and they played to their potential. They're the best team. Get ready.
All right, picks of the week coming up when we come back on Varsity Sports.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute, Shields, and Farmers Union Insurance Agency.
Welcome back. Time to make the picks of the week, and we go head-to-head, or you and Jay always go head-to-head in 4 big games of the week, throwing an upset special for good measure, maybe as a tiebreaker, which it was after last week.
Upsets make the difference, let me tell you.
You get 1 point for each pick, and then 2 for the upset special. Jay got his upset special right last week, picking the Lincoln boys over Brandon Valley, so he leads you 5-3 right now.
Yep, so far, so it's close. But usually I get the lead early in the season. He catches up, so maybe we'll switch the roles here.
North Dakota boys this week on Tuesday, Century and Bismarck. Century, the number 1 team. What do you got?
Well, I've got to take Century in this one. They are by far and away, in my opinion, the best team in the state. They did struggle a little bit on Tuesday night, had to pull one out. That's the first time they've really struggled in a game, but still got the win. And I think Dalton Feeney, Adam Geiger, and company have got things rolling. They'll take care of business in the big game against BHS.
Apparently, Mr. Elson agrees. He's taking Century to beat Bismarck. In the girls' game, same matchup. Who you got?
Well, this one is a little bit easier for me. Bismarck, the girls have been playing pretty well, but this is a whole different level of competition. In my opinion, Century and Shanley, the two best teams in the state, they're kind of in a class by themselves. I think Jenna Fitterer, Courtney Selensky, and company will continue to keep that offensive machine running. Century gets the win.
On behalf of Jay Elson, I agree. Century as well there. So Century.
Yep.
What about in South Dakota boys? Huron at Watertown on Friday.
I mean, this is a legitimate 1 versus 2 matchup right now. Watertown have pulled out a few big wins early in the season, surprising some teams. They're not going to surprise anybody anymore. They get a home game here. They've already beaten Huron once this season, but I think Huron is on a roll right now. They've got things going in the right direction. Highland Heinz went for a big night Tuesday night, taking on one of the other stars in the state, Nate Brown, for Watertown. I think Heinz and company will go on the road and get a little bit of an upset over Watertown.
Jay disagrees with you on this one. He's going to take the Arrows at home. I know he likes Huron a lot, but he's going to take Watertown.
Surprised you can make that pick, Tom.
All right, South Dakota girls, McCook Central taking on Mount Vernon Plankington on Saturday.
Oh, this is going to be a fun one. The Hanson Classic, always full of great matchups. They saved this one for last because we've got a couple stars. We're going to watch Morgan Kepsel, the sophomore from McCook Central, 6'1" post player, going up against the 6'3" post player, future Jackrabbit, Megan Baltzma. This will be fun to watch in the post, but there's some good guards in this game as well. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, but I think in the end, Mount Vernon Plankington has showed that they have even boosted their game up from what they were last year. I think the Titans pull off the victory.
All right, Jay takes Mount Vernon Plankington in this one as well, so one disagreement thus far, so let's get to the upset pick, and you go first.
I'm going to take the Mandan girls. Last Tuesday, they suffered a close loss. I think they're on the right track, building some momentum, taking on Minot, who had a little struggle in the middle of their start of the season, but are coming on strong lately. I still think Mandan is the team that kind of takes out Minot for the big upset.
Jay Elson in his upset pick. In boys basketball in South Dakota, will take James Valley Christian over Sanborn Central Woonsocket.
Yep.
Write it down.
Sanborn, well, so far he's been a lock, so we'll see what happens.
All right, that's it for Varsity Sports. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.